Oh, okay, okay, good. Good evening to everyone. Again, to those that were with us before, and now to people that just joined this call. Today we are continuing to talk about the chapter 9 that is about the problem of nutrition on the spiritual world. So we have stopped here where we left highlighted. So I'll read that here again, and we start from that point. After 21 years of persevering efforts in this governor's part, the Ministry of Elevation gave in and cut its supplies to strictly necessary. So the minister, basically, he was upset, and he said that no, everything has a term, and from this point onwards, will be like that. The Minister of Elucidation, however, took a long time to follow his good example, owing to the greater number of statistics-minded spirits working there. So we see in this part of the book that the spiritual world, even in Astral City, was not always a place without different point of views, at least. And in some cases, they have arguments, they have very strong arguments regarding few subjects. They were the most obstinate adversaries. So here he's telling us that even those spirits in Astral City, they were adversaries in that particular point of view. The food is still entrenched in their earthly ideas that the ingestion of protein and carbohydrates is indispensable to the human frame. So let's try to digest this item. Well, most of the people will read this text and believe they are talking about human frame in the physical world, but they are not. They were arguing about nutrition in the spiritual world, the nutrition for the spirits, not the nutrition for the incarnated people. They were clearly discussing nutrition for the spirits. And here in that particular part of the book, or this chapter, he's saying injection of protein and carbohydrates. So in the spiritual world, they ingest protein and carbohydrates to the human frame, to the physical body of the spirit. We, the incarnated, we call the spirit's body Perispirit. But the Perispirit is a body for the spirit. But we have to think a little bit further here. Where we get protein from? We get protein from?
The food.
What kind of food?
Animals.
What else?
Vegetables, fruits, mineral.
We get protein from meat.
Meat.
And from some grains.
Grains.
/ vegetables, right? And vegan people may say, oh, they eat only grains over there. Very good. They get protein from grains, right? Yeah, that's a good argument, right? But let's keep that in mind, right? So see if they will speak a little bit more about that. They insisted in maintaining their ideas here, and every week they sent the governor lengthy reports full of warnings and observations, tests and numerical data support their claims. So they have arguments between scientists and the spiritual world trying to defend what they believe. They did calculations, they did tests, and they were trying to convince the governor about what they think. Such impertinence even reached the point of arrogance, yet governor's patience never failed. So possibly they were kindly telling the governor that he was out of his depth. He didn't know what to do, or he was not knowing what to do at the time. Having decided not to act alone, we obtained the assistance of highly evolved entities who guide us through the Minister of Divine Union. So let me stop here. He was not alone. He got support from highly evolved entities. So that means he was having the support from spirits from a different layer of evolution, from a different status of evolution. And together, they examined every one of those documents thoroughly. It seems to be like Kardec, right? Even every complaint, every time he was targeted by the opposition, he studied what he was targeted for. He paid respect and attention to what was coming towards him. While the scientists multiplied their arguments and the government stalled for time, dangerous disturbances were brewing in the Department of Generation. Dangerous disturbances, okay? We talk about that through that test. Now known as the Minister of Generation. Some of the less developed spirits there were caught up in the Spirit's rebellion. We are talking about a place that everyone wants to go, Astral City, a high, nice place, you know. And they had the spirits of rebellion. The spirits had the spirits of rebellion, right? So they had different opinions of those in the Ministry of Elucidation and act simply deplorably. So they were nasty, in other words. They were very polite in this translation, but they were nasty. The atmosphere of unrest divided the colony. So they had part of the colony that was in favor, part against, exposing the Astral City to dangerous attack from the inhabitants of the lower zones. Let's give a little thought about that. I think it's fair to say that we believe the Astral City has protection, is where evolved spirits in comparison of what we are there. And they had a breach in their own vibration. When 50% of the, let's say, I'm saying 50%, right? But when they say 50% of a group of people thinking about one way and the other one entirely different, especially when we've been told there were arguments and few altercations, possibly. So you have a breach in your vibration. What is important to us to learn here? Let's think about our homes. If a place with all protection had a breach, what about our places? We need to be very careful in the way we treat our places. The smallest invigilance we may have may bring problems to our own places. Such entities endeavored to invade our city, availing themselves of the breach of service of the Department of Regeneration, where many workers have been carrying a clandestine dealings in order to satisfy the undesirable conditions to food. Well, What is he telling us here?
They had black market.
Mhm. Exactly. Traffic, black market. Additions to food. What kind of food he's talking here? He's talking about meat. He's talking about carbohydrates, as he mentioned upstairs. So how is that possible? How your brain is thinking about that now? Tell me, because I'm pretty sure you read this book before. Have you paid attention to that little detail? Well, but now you are. So how can we eat food to start with in the spiritual world? And how can we eat meat and carbohydrate on the spiritual world? How is that possible?
Well, they have, I mean, they have earth, they have plants, so they can plant potato, whatever. I mean, the vegetables, and is how I envisage it. They can do it, but I think what they, or maybe, I don't know, I don't think they're able to create it. I don't know. Yeah, by planting it.
This is something we need to contemplate. They can plant. We know they have gardens. We know they have a structure to provide food on the spiritual world. So it's fair to assume they have plantation, right? But we also know there are animals on the spiritual world, right? This book, not only this book, but many books mention birds, little animals, horses. So I'm led to believe there is more things than we believe, right? So it's fair to say, based on information we received through Andre Luiz, that a type of spirits, when discarnate, they are so heavy in the composition, spiritual composition, that they do need to have protein and carbohydrates. There are more things, but I'm using those two, right? And even in Astral City, they were used to eat those two items. He's telling here that they changed this habit, but it wasn't like that in the beginning. So I think, let's think about layers again. Astral City is no longer eating meat or carbohydrates, proteins or carbohydrates. But the cities that are below, in a more dense area, this may not apply. Because if even Astral City, they used to have that, what is closer to where we are possibly is doing the same thing, right? So why I like to speak about this topic, because he showed to us how natural is the spiritual world in comparison to what we know on earth. Because why do we eat? Because we need energy. Why do we eat protein? To maintain the body. Why do we need water? To maintain the body. Basically, our bodies, spiritual bodies or physical body, need to maintain the level of energy. Otherwise, what is going to happen to the body? I will not answer that question. I'll leave that with you. So we need to have a way to maintain the level of energy of our bodies, here and there. But a lot of spiritists, they believe everything is done by thought. So I am count on it, because I don't like to eat soup. So I will think every day about a big sandwich, like a Big Mac or something like that, you know. So if I can create everything by thought, Well, I love pudding too. So I will create my own food, like only by thought. But I don't believe it's like that. Not at all. So it's a very simple example, but it breaks paradigms, because I'm pretty sure that a lot of people that may hear this audio later, they may not like it, what I'm saying, but it's there, it's written. It's written for more than 70 years. It's written by someone that at least I don't have means to say that he was wrong. I don't have enough morale to tell that this spirit or the medium were wrong. I don't. So I prefer to rely on them. So this is just a little glance of things that hurt our ears when we hear for the first time. But if we do allow ourselves to study that in depth, it's hard to say that we are crazy, right? Here we go then. The alarm was given, and though the crisis posed a serious threat to us all, the governor maintained his usual serenity. He asked the Ministry of Divine Union for a meeting, and after listening to our highest council, had the Ministry of Communication temporarily closed. What does happen on the Ministry of Communication? This is the ministry where allows the spirits from Astral City to communicate with other cities, with other spirits. So the governor were concerned about bad influence from other cities to support the old habits of Nosso Lar, Astral City. So one of the things, he stopped the line of communication. He stopped the food, he stopped the line of communication. He was very smart, because when we're starving, we eat anything. If I don't have protein, if I don't have carbohydrates, and someone give me soup, I'll be very happy, because I'm starving. If I don't have line of communication, I cannot complain outside my circle, and I cannot find any additional information outside my circle. On top of that, he mentioned here, there was a traffic going on. So I would not be able to call Deliveroo to bring me anything else either, because I don't have how to call anymore. So that was a massive directive from the governor to stop any means to people that were defending the old habits to find a way to get around it. Where did I stop? He asked that close. He ordered the he ordered the dungeons of the Department of Regeneration prepare for the isolation of the more stubborn rebels. Well, possibly was not the first time they have to do anything like that, because otherwise they wouldn't have dungeons. So eventually it has been used before for the same purpose, otherwise wouldn't be dungeons. So he was considering to use force to contain the rebellion. Hi, Sandra.
About my English, I have no idea about dungeons.
Calabouço, encarceragem, is a place where we put people, we restrain people, like in jail. But that is the jail at the time of the castles, where it used to be underground, very unfriendly. Right. So
I think this word is well used in the terror or horror films.
yeah, that's true. That's true. So he was prepared to use force to contain the rebellion. Is that something that you would consider for the spiritual world? We have to put people in jail. And sometimes when we are in the mediumship meetings, people think, spirits, sometimes they come and say they are in chains, they are tied, and people believe it's just in their mind. It's definitely not. Sometimes the spirit has to be restrained, otherwise he hurt himself and others, especially when they are brought to mediumship meetings. But as we think we do everything by mind, everything is, there's a word in Portuguese, idioplastia. I don't know how that means, how to say that in English. But basically, you create everything by thought. I totally don't believe that. If I am Jesus, if I am God, of course, then we are talking about a different type of people. But spirits like me, I wish, but it's not going to happen. I will not be able to create anything by thought, not at all. He admonished the Ministry of Education, whose impertinence he had withstood for 30 years, and decreed that any further assistance whatsoever to the lower regions should be suspended until further notice. Why? Why he had to stop assistance to the lower zones, to Umbral? Why is that?
Because
If he won't, sorry?
Because of the influence they could have, people that were going there to help them would come back for that influence.
Well, think about me, right? My wife, she would love me to become a vegetarian. Every time I have a chance, I escape from home and I'm going to a place I can buy a burger or I can buy a barbecue or something. It's the same thing. If my wife locked me inside my place, I need to eat just vegetables because I will be starving. I'll eat vegetables. But if she opened the door, I have a McDonald's next door, so I'm going to the McDonald's, you know? I'll be very happy to do it. So we, as a human beings, we have to think the spirits would react like we do, because we are no different than the spirits. The only difference is the body. When we die, I'm still thinking about what I like. I was still missing the people I missed. There's no change. So he's bringing to us the nature of the spirits in regards to food, for example. So basically, if he had allowed people from the lower zones to be helped, those assistants could compromise what he was trying to do. Because those people that were coming to the lower zones, they would have contact with protein, because I don't want to be talking about food and meat all the time, and carbohydrates and a few other things. And they also could be part of people bringing it back. Let's think about our anger. I love sweeties. I love Coca-Cola. I love, think about something you really love. And for some reason, you decide not to have anymore. Perhaps your doctor said you have diabetes, you cannot have sugar anymore. You are following 100% the instructions from your doctor. But then there's a neighbor who knocks on your door and asks you to come with her to a place where have sweeties, sugar, everything sweet in that store. You may be tempted to get at least one. I am. So basically it's that. He had to create a scenario to isolate Astral City from the rest of the world. Otherwise, his attempt to improve the way they should find means to maintain the physical / spiritual body. So everything could be compromised. for the first time in his administration, he had an electric weapon in the city walls turned on, so as to emit magnetic darts as to measure of defense. So we know that Nosso Lar has a massive walls around it. We know they have a massive door to go inside Nosso Lar, Astral City. Now we know they have, yes?
Guilherme, interesting, because now the counting years, this Ministry of Education, impertinence for 30 years. Imagine the patient that is governor. My goodness, 30 years, more than Andre Luiz stayed in Umbral or Lower Zones. No?
Imagine how far we are from those spirits.
My goodness.
We are not able, myself, I'm not able to keep patience for one day in some situations. Imagine 30 years. I will not be able to, definitely not.
But I'm thinking, if a Ministry of Education should be, I think is more or less evolved spirit, you know? And even evolved, not perfect, of course, is impertinent. It's looking like that we have in our politicians here now.
That's
so
why
yeah, go on, thank you.
No, sorry, go on, you carry on.
No, I'm thinking like that, make some conclusions in my mind, following, né? No, now no food, heavy food anymore, because we are spirits, we have to breathe the air to manipulate our blah, blah, blah. I have lessons for that, how to do it, but some, they are really impertinent, they don't want, they want their meat, they want their materialized, inverted commas, but not a material. They're not kill to breed, to eat the animals there. But they, in their minds, they are receiving these traficantes, né, de alimentos, né? The traffickers from lower zones, but only in their minds, because the spirits very intelligent, they can manipulate. You can think that you are eating a meat, not. They receive their money, they receive their things, but at the end of the day, you are você foi passado para trás, né?
I'm not sure if I understood, Elsa, but what he's saying here is not in the spirit's mind. The way I see is real. It's not because the spirit is thinking he's eating. It's because they were eating.
No, they can produce, they can materialize, inverted commas, but producing, using their minds, etc. This intelligent.
I don't think so. I don't think so.
No?
That's exactly what I'm thinking differently. I think we would like to create everything from our mind, but I don't think we do. I think those things are there like we have here. We have to think about one thing. If the spiritual world is the blueprint of the earth, and here we are a poor copy of what they have over there, why they cannot have exactly what we have here? Especially because it's described here, it's not describing that the spirit is thinking about food, it's thinking about meat. It's describing they were eating, they were using it. So we have a different opinion. And my opinion is that...
No. I'm talking, I said what I have in my mind. I'm thinking about, of course.
Yeah, but it's so difficult to even say that, because most of the people are not prepared to even consider that. But I'm not talking about very elevated places. I'm talking about places close to where we are. Now we know, for example, that Astral City, they do not use that anymore. But we know, for example, in the messengers and other books, they have different cities in the lower zones, deeper in the lower zones. And so on those areas, it's way closer than we are. So that's my take anyway.
So you're saying that they kill animals?
Yes. Yes.
To, wow.
Yes. Exactly what I'm saying is exactly what they are implying here.
Isn't there another possibility, like, and I don't know if it was Filomena de Miranda that told us about laboratories in the lower zones? Don't you think they could manipulate the elements to create a piece of meat, for example, not killing animals? Oh my God. If we on Earth, we are creating synthetic meat, it does exist over there as well. We created here on Earth synthetic meat. We can buy if we want, right? So over there, they exist as well. But you will not have that capacity to prepare synthetic meat unless you have the technology. We have to understand that we have different layers of development in society. Not Astral City is on the edge of the umbral, the lower zones, is on the edge. There are cities way more evolved that on those areas, possibly they don't eat anything like that anymore. They absorb energy through respiration, through water, but there are also plenty of layers in the lower zone that's what's happening over there. Yeah, that's it. But as animals there are less dense than here, this couldn't be let's say animal's spirit. How can they kill animal's spirit?
You don't kill the spirit.
It's not easy to.
That's one thing people have a very hard time to understand, because the spirit is eternal. Spirit is eternal. The spiritual body is not eternal. The spiritual body can be hurt.
Yes. Now
what can be hurted, we know the rest, right? And
yeah, you're right.
It's there. And you're thinking about the spiritual body is very subtle because it's in the spiritual world. Yes, it's subtle for us on Earth, but to the spirits over there is not subtle. What is dense for us is exactly the same what is dense for them in the spiritual body. If we compare, we have to compare apples by apples, right? And then if we add in this little equation the difference of the density of the matter, is fine. You still have a heavy apple on Earth, you have a light apple on the spiritual world, but everything that's on that level is on the same matter, is on the same density. So it's not light. And we have a description through Andre Luiz that her mother, for example, when she came from a higher level, she had to materialize and she had to communicate through mediumship to speak to Andre Luiz. So the mechanisms are exactly the same, doesn't matter where we are. But we have a very hard time to accept this because it hurts what we've been told to believe. It hurts our freedom to evaluate different possibilities. Why I feel comfortable to talk about that? Because it's written here. We may decide not to interpret it like that, and that's very fine. Once again, I'm not here to convince anyone.
What is there? It's written. If you don't want to be convinced, that's fine. If you don't want to believe, that's also fine, but it's there. But explain to me then, how can we eat protein? How can we eat carbohydrates? How can we have traffic, dealers, to bring something back and forth? How is that possible? The only explanation to me is the way I see it. Perhaps I'm completely wrong. I'm not saying that, but look at the level of things here. So if we think that everything was just a reflex of what people, the spirits are thinking, everything in this chapter is a massive lie. Everything in this chapter would be a massive lie. Because
Sorry, I lost connection.
you back.
My tablet died.
I think you didn't miss much, but the way, as I said, look at those things, dangers, who is there? It's very clear. And then we have to ask ourselves, I believe in Chico Xavier and Andre Luiz, or I don't believe them. Then it's up to everyone, decision, of course, but it's written there. So back to what time is it? I'm talking too much. First time. Let's think about electric weapons. Do you really think those electric weapons were just pigeons or just flowers they were throwing on the spirits to scare the spirits? He was very clear using the word weapons. We spoke about electricity before, right? So I'm not going to talk about that again. But he's using a word called weapon. Weapons are for the same reasons we have weapons here. Weapons can hurt. Weapons can hurt, right? There were neither battles nor attack on the colony side, only resolute defense. So at least one good thing, right? They never had an event that they had to use those defenses, right? But the defenses are there. For over 6 months, the diet of the Astral City was reduced to life supporting principles. So I imagine myself over there. I would be screaming for food. You know, imagine just eating something life supporting is the very basics to maintain your life. Once again, how is that possible? Why do we have to be concerned about life support for something that does not die? No.
Guilherme, I think I'm close. No, I was reading advanced, sorry. And I found that you are right. That is almost the end of this chapter. You are right, what he says here.
I didn't read yet. I don't remember the end.
But it's nearly there.
Oh, hopefully we'll have time today. But now I will ask a question to my friends. Could be you, Nancy. How can, explain me how I need life-supporting food for something that does not die? Remember, the spirit is eternal.
I think it's necessary for the spirit. It's just necessary to keep their energy, right? I remember there are Buddhist monks that lives like that, with the energy of the surroundings. Not 100%, but they are trained to how can I say, to absorb this energy from the light of the sun, from the wind, and something like that.
Yeah, the name of them,
The same.
they are the yogis. The yogis, they can do that, right? But we have to get used to the idea that the spirit is like our brain. The spirit is eternal, right?
Yep.
But our physical body and our perispirit, we may lose it. And by the way, we have different ways of losing it. And we know from a fact that we lose the spiritual body when we move from a planet to another. And everybody is happy to accept that because it's nice. It's how can I explain that? It doesn't hurt my heart when I hear that. But to hear that I may lose my perispirit because I was hurt and I was attacked, that hurts. We need to accept the principles of things, in my opinion, right? We may lose the physical body, yes or no. We may lose the spiritual body, yes or no. And after we come to some middle ground, then we open up our brain to different analysis. But here, in my take, is that he was reduced to life support principles because he had to keep the perispirit of the spirits to the minimum. Otherwise, the perispirit would suffer. And perhaps the damage could be irreversible, not for the spirit, but for the perispirit. But that's not our take here. Let's continue then. Thus, for the first time, the colony felt the indignation of a kind and just spirit. Regardless of what the governor did, he's still saying he was kind and just. But put yourselves in the shoes of those spirits having to eat air for 6 months. I would die anyway. So the crisis was finally over. The government had the crisis was finally over. The government had won. The Ministry of Elucidation itself admitted its terror and lent a hand. It said that during the festivities, the governor was moved to tears. Basically, he gave up and said the governor was right? Declaring that the general good understanding of his fellow citizens was that the dearest reward to his heart. The Department of Regeneration was promoted to the ministry, and the city returned to its usual routine. Right? Since that time, only the ministries of regeneration and assistance were allowed greater supplies of nutritive substances, owing the low spirituality of many of their patients. Here we go. If the spirits are not very evolved, they need food, real food, right? So to those spirits that just arrived in Astral City, they were very close to their human, if I say like that, needs. They were supplied with more dense food. We need to pay attention that they were choosing the words carefully, not to hurt people 70 years ago. And people 70 years ago, they did very nice things to Chico Xavier. They said very nice things about him when he brought this kind of knowledge to the Spiritism. And even today, we have a massive difficulty to accept what is here. In our other ministries, the diet is limited to the essentials, according to the rules of the strictest sobriety. Nowadays, everyone agrees that the governor's apparently arbitrary imposition was a most valuable measure towards our ascent. Our contact with material things was reduced, giving rise to greater spirituality. Lysias fell into silence while I pondered deeply over the great lessons I just received. What time is it? I think really that today is clear to me. Wasn't clear the first time I read the book, the second time I read the book. No, it wasn't. After a period of time where I was reading and reading, and then getting access to different authors, different perceptions, different interpretations, I start to see things like that. But to me, it's clear. Sorry if you don't think so. And I have nothing against people that don't share the same opinion, but it's there.
Yeah, I do agree with you. This is the third time I'm reading this book, and now the matter of meat, how it is produced there, now it came to my mind. How is it produced there?
I'm
And
sorry.
I agree with you.
I'm sorry that I broke your book.
Guilherme.
No, that's a great thing, because anytime we read, every time we read, we gain more knowledge, right?
Yeah. Yes, you see, I read this book, I think one or twice in these 50 years. But what caught my attention now, exactly now, I don't know why not before, our contact with material things was reduced, giving rise to a greater spirituality.
Mm-hmm.
So Andre Luiz is saying that.
Mm-hmm.
It means before that they have much more, a greater contact with material things, even meat.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, but you see,
Air made good for them.
Yeah. And that's why I really, really try to push people to read those books again and again. And to give you an idea, right now I'm doing the messengers in another institution. But before I start this study, I tell to the people, I will not read the book before again. I will not read again before the study. We will read together. During our study, we will see the kind of intuition, the kind of things we can perceive together. And I still finding things I haven't found before. It's like I was having a conversation with Geraldo Lemos, and it's like we are in a massive video game. Every time we win, we move to a different level. On that different level, we have to relearn different things again, if you want to move to another level of the game. So basically, the whole Andre Luiz books are like that. For the first time, you read everything like a romance, right? Second time is a romance. Third time, you find one thing different. If you read again, you find maybe 3, 4, 5. I lost. I don't know how many times I read those books again and again. I don't know. But every time we are reading again, we find different things. After I started to do this kind of things with Andre Luiz books, I started to do this thing with the Allan Kardec book, and it's exactly the same. Things is like hidden inside the words of those books. Only when you really trying to learn something is there. Everything is there. It's massive what Kardec did for us. Everything is there. But as this book, for example, we don't want to see what is there. And the main problem is sometimes we want to change the meaning of the words. We want to tailor those words to what we want to be. So we need to be very open to improve the way we study. I love Andre Luiz, I really do. It's very nice. It's very nice. So what time is it? 7 minutes. Are you all happy if we move to the next chapter? Good. The title already is a problem. The water park. Hi, Sylvia. Sylvia? I thought she had raised her hand. Okay, maybe I'm wrong. The water park. Well, we are prepared now to accept it better that we have parks, we have buildings, right? Something we never thought before. We have buildings, but we have water. The best description of the universal cosmic fluid is the water. Water is present everywhere in the universe. And now, even the scientists are able to prove that because they found water in the comets, they found water in other planets. Well, the possibility of water in other planets, right? In the comet, they found water, right? So there is a part of scientists that even believe water came from space to Earth, right? Nothing my growing interest in the process of nutrition. Lysias, noting my growing interest in the process of nutrition, Lysias invited me to accompany him into an instructive excursion. Let's go, he suggested, and see the colony's great reservoir. There you will have the opportunity to see some things that will interest you and to learn the importance of water in our transition settlement. Astral City is a transitional city. It's a place where people stay to move forward or to move back, right? Move forward means go to a higher place where possibly you don't eat like they eat in Nosso Lar, in Astral City. As we evolve, our need of dense food reduces. But he is telling that water is vital in Astral City. Means that what is water? Water is life. So for the spirits to maintain life of the physical / spiritual body, they need water, right? Why I'm talking about physical / spiritual body? Because for the spirits, the perispirit is physical, right? There's no, that's the body they have. My curiosity roused, I gladly accept the invitation when we arrived at the corner of the public square, my kind friend stopped. Here we wait for Airbus. Here we wait for the Airbus, he said, right? I think it was last week we talked about means of transportation, I think. And yeah, he's there. He said, I won't talk about that here because I think it's well known, it's well accepted by the spirits, right? But we need to think about what kind of energy drives the Airbus, right? A lot of the spiritists think it's by thought. We have a lot of spirits that gather together inside a house thinking about, I will create energy to maintain the Airbus line working. Really? I don't think so. I think they have a structure to provide with way better technology than we have to provide energy for the transportation they have. Could be solar panels. Yes, could be solar panels. We have here already. Could be electricity. Could be electricity. Could be magnetic. Could be magnetic. We have it here already, right? So something, it's not by thought. I had scarcely gotten over my surprise when a large vehicle approached, floating about 15 feet above the ground. By the way,
In some countries now, you can buy your drivable, I don't know the name, it's a flying bike. You have flying cars already. You can buy that if you're very rich. You can buy that already. I think Estonia, they just granted the right people to use flying cars now. So it's a reality. It's a reality here. But imagine that 70 years ago. People would say, no, no, we'll never see that here on Earth. 100 years-ish apart, we can buy one if you have enough money for it. Give another 50 years and you see how this world will be different. Filled with passengers. It descended like an elevator. I looked at it closely. It was very long, like no vehicle I had ever seen on Earth. It seemed to be made of a very flexible material. It's a material, nevertheless. It's not steel, it's not carbon steel, it's not plastic, but it's a material for the spirits, nevertheless. And judging from the number of antennas on its roof, I guessed it was connected to invisible wires. Well, I'm coming from a time that we have to connect our phone into the wall, into the socket, otherwise you wouldn't have phone. Today, we have Wi-Fi everywhere. Perhaps they have a system equivalent to Wi-Fi to send electricity. I don't know if you know, but today you can buy a little equipment, put in your electrical power, and they will transfer Wi-Fi through your electric power. So there's so many technologies nowadays, imagining on the other side what they can do.
Yeah, 9 p.m. now.
Oh, sorry. I lost my time because I like so much this book
10
that I'm reading.
p.m.
Yeah,
10,
I lost.
10.
Well, guys, thanks a lot.